Hi, I'm Donna Edwards and I'm Director of Business Support and Business Finance at the Growth Company. This is the second of 4 webinars which the Growth Company is hosting to help keep businesses informed on the latest advice and guidance in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic. There's no doubt that the uncertainty around the situation is very worrying for businesses up and down the country. However, as an organisation, we're doing all we can to support businesses, provide guidance and share the latest developments as and when they happen. Each webinar will focus on a different theme and will feature experts. I hope you'll find today's discussion useful. Today's panel, we have Caroline Monk, Executive Partner from Beaver and Struthers. In her role at Beaver and Struthers, Caroline advises businesses on strategic and audit matters relevant to their international needs. Beaver and Struthers has been providing advice, support and a complete range of accounting services to clients for over 100 years. We also have Jeff Crossley, Senior Manufacturing Advisor from the GC Business Growth Hub. Jeff is a highly skilled manufacturing specialist, practicing supporting manufacturing businesses to implement lean tools and techniques, which will increase efficiency. Jeff is passionate about helping manufacturers work smarter to do more with less. We also then finally have Phil Hargreaves, who's the Access to Finance lead at the GC Business Growth Hub. Philip has worked in commercial and corporate banking for the past 40 years and is now responsible for the Hub's Access to Finance team. Working closely with partners in the business and professional communities, Philip and his team are passionate about supporting local SMEs. We have a number of topics that we're hoping to cover today. Assessing the financial and operational risk related to the COVID-19 virus on businesses, identifying and managing risks in supply chains, developing an effective contingency plan, and overcoming challenges relating to cash flow. So I'd like to open up with Caroline and your sort of update on where you think we are at the moment.
Thank you. Wow, that's quite a starting place, an update where we are, because it feels that you're permanently 5 minutes behind where you need to be, if not 5 hours behind, because the situation is just moving so rapidly. So even in dealing with our own firm, leaving work on Friday night, quite comfortable where we were with our measures and our preparations, and coming into work on Monday morning feels a very different place. And I think that's just echoed across all the clients that I've been speaking to over the last week or so. I think Donna mentioned that our firm, not me, but our firm has been in existence for 100 years. I'm absolutely certain, without looking through the archives, that this is as big a situation to face as has ever been done so in the circumstances. But we have to keep calm and work our way through methodically. Yeah. I think that's the key message. Thank you.
Okay. Phil?
Well, as ever, cash is key. From a finance perspective, it's important that business owners take a proactive stance towards managing cash flow. I think the key message from me today is don't wait until you're facing an issue. The time is right to act now. And the messages that we are giving out from the Access to Finance team is that maintain that cash flow forecast, make sure it's updated on a regular basis, understand where the pinch points might be coming. Review all outgoing payments, delay any non-essential items, and review the frequency of when you pay creditors. What we're not saying is work outside of contractual terms, but make sure that you prolong the payments to improve cash flow as much as you can do. And send out invoices in a timely manner is key. Make sure that these are chased promptly. This is cash that's owed to you, so don't be afraid about getting on the phone and asking for money when it's due. It's really important that you start to chase up those cash flow issues, and we can talk a little bit more about that as we go through the webinar.
Okay. Jeff?
Yeah, the manufacturers I'm speaking to are all quite isolated, I feel. Many of them are wondering what to do next. The sort of SMEs who run small businesses don't really know where to go to next. Some of the advice we've been taking to them is begin to understand staffing levels as to sort of what's a critical path in your manufacturing. What can you actually what can you do with a minimum staff? What your skills are. In lean manufacture, we've got what we call robustness, which is a ratio of everyone in the place can do 3 jobs. And every job in the place can be done by 3 people. How robust is your workforce? If some people go off sick, can that be maintained?
Okay. Obviously, a key theme through this is suppliers and making sure that products are available, i.e. to manufacture and obviously deliver to customers. So what advice would you give around supply chains and some of the concerns that are being raised around, is freight still moving?
Okay, if I sort of start and then we can chip in and discuss. But I think UK manufacturers, if we drill into that, and the supply chain are perhaps a little bit further on than might otherwise have been the case. Because before we had the C word occupying our minds, we did have the dreaded B word, and as part of that, we had a lot of emphasis on looking at supply chains and understanding where they are. But any business who hasn't got a clear mapping of their supply chain, and not only their direct supply, but where their suppliers' supplies are coming from, needs to be opening up conversations with those suppliers quickly. And it's really what Pete was saying in terms of communication, I think is key in all of this. We've got to keep the lines of communication open. If a supplier's got an issue supplying you with a product, you want to know now, not later, not after the event.
And I think building on from that, it's an easy thing to say, but understand who your future suppliers might be. So it's not just about current supply chains, it's what's available, perhaps more locally, maybe more expensive, but can you search out and understand what's available in your wider supply chain groupings to make sure you've got continuity of supplies coming in so that you can continue to service your own customers as well.
Yeah.
Many manufacturers as well are working on call-off systems whereby their customers will order at the beginning of the week 10 items and they're supposed to supply 10 items.
Yes.
If those suddenly items stop being ordered, then you're going to have to understand your upside of your supply chain as well, upstream side of your supply chain. In that, what are your suppliers? Because if you are making a component that's part of another assembly, there's going to be no need for your component suddenly. You may be okay. But to understand what upstream is, that communication is absolutely vital to understand where it's going to go to.
Yeah, and I think that's a theme that's coming through in all of this, isn't it? About the communication. You can get a lot by email and through those means, but actually this is about having those conversations directly with your suppliers, not just relying
and the whole chain, as Jeff was just saying, open up a debate with where you're right from the start of your supply chain right up to the end of your customer chain, really. So you do understand, because there's no benefit in you stocking up with an item that you can't then sell on, because you're going to have a double whammy of cash when we come to talk about that.
I think it's important that business owners don't bury their head in the sands. I think it's important that we understand it's not just business as usual, that management teams up and down the country should be actively planning for what they can do to best mitigate against the current virus issues.
And that this is not going to be a 2-week issue. This could be for months. So looking at alternative suppliers doesn't seem like the right reaction to deal with the problem today. But this could still be a problem in May, June, July. So it is the right course of action.
Yeah, and obviously key in that is actually talking to your bank or your accountant in terms of that cash flow and planning around that, which I think was your point, Phil.
I think it is. I think it's absolutely important that any business that feels they're going to struggle with cash flow, in fact, maybe even businesses that are not struggling with cash flow, speak to their financial advisors, but specifically their bankers and funders to make sure that they are apprised of the situation that they're in. Bankers typically don't like to receive bad messages, but when the message is bad, the sooner you speak to them, the better. You can help them to understand what it is you're going through and what the outcomes are likely to be. It's about the story that you can tell to the bank. They're more likely to be more helpful and more supportive if you've got a clear view about where your business is now, where it's going to be in the future, and what support and help you need in the short term will be critical. So my single request today will be pick up the phone to your bank manager and make sure you have that conversation today.
I absolutely agree. Clearly in the position we are supporting our clients, I think what is going to come through is that this will have an impact on everyone's cash flow. It's not like where we were in 2008 with the global liquidity crisis, where actually good businesses can work through it, and it was businesses who were in trouble who that was the final straw for the proverbial back. Here, a business that is perfectly well financed and perfectly well managed is going to have a cash flow issue over the next few months, because every plan being as good as it can, we will not be working as efficiently for the next few months as we
really
do today.
businesses do really need to build up that war chest
You
about
do.
how to survive.
And to anticipate if there is a pinch point in that war chest, quite
Yes.
how big it is, when it is, and what you can do about it.
Yes.
And this is where you need access to really accurate information. All the points Pete talked about planning and identifying your pinch points. It's really going to come down to how accurate your financial modelling is, so that you can predict those pinch points. And clearly, the more accurate you are in your modelling, the more comfortable any funder will be in helping you through those pinch points.
And it's also about being realistic, isn't it, in terms of if that whole supply chain is impacted by cash flow, that there will be knock-on effects from that. So it's actually doing some modelling around worst case scenarios as well.
That's right.
You know, what might happen in terms of that whole process, rather
Yes.
than just looking at what looks realistic now, then it's actually doing the scenario planning around potential worst case scenarios.
And I think the converse of that, Donna, is don't be too optimistic. Funders never want somebody that they don't believe they can rely on. Make sure that you're realistic in the right ways, and that you make sure you get the message across in the right ways.
That's right.
Don't tell a funder that you're going to do more than you're going to do if you're not going to be able to achieve that, because at the end of the day, it'll come out in the wash. So
It will
be
do.
clear, have the story, and make sure you're open and honest about where you are.
Yeah. Well, one of the measures introduced, in the budget last week that I'm sure people will have picked up on is HMRC sort of reminding about the ability to negotiate time to pay arrangements. And certainly we as a business have seen a lot of clients wanting to talk to us about that. It was always the case that to get a successful negotiation under that agreement, you had to have a good story to put through about why you had these temporary issues, and that they were indeed temporary. But that's something that should be picked up and worked through.
And that's a great point. I think the two key actions there. One is during the 2008 credit crunch, that was a really important process for businesses to go through, and was a really helpful part of the support that government provided to businesses. And another is make sure the story is right. That's why you should use your financial advisors and financial representatives to make sure that the story you tell to HMRC is the best story that you can tell.
That's right. And sometimes, and certainly when clients are speaking to us, they might get a bit tense, that we're looking like we're pushing back, but we're not. What we're trying to do is anticipate the questions that HMRC might ask, and pulling, so really deep diving into those, so that the submission that goes to HMRC is as well-rounded and as complete as possible. And I think that's a really important stage in it. You should do not underestimate how long you should spend on preparing your submission, whether it's to HMRC or to any other funder.
So conversely, there are going to be companies that in the health sector or health-related products who actually are going to see potentially an upturn in their business. So that equally can bring challenges for those organisations as well. So what messages would you have for them?
I think that's a very varied one, because it depends what products they're actually manufacturing, what they're actually working with. Certainly sort of the understanding that sort of costs are going to change, to keep the costs very accurate as to what they're actually manufacturing, what they can actually physically do as well. I think understanding the limits of what they can do, how they can manufacture, and how they can build a production line up quickly into manufacturing things. Outside of manufacturing, there is other products that other businesses and other sort of business needs that are going to need fulfilling too.
Yeah.
I think from a general finance perspective, obviously the Chancellor announced a number of initiatives to support small businesses in terms of gearing up and looking for additional funding and finance. One was the introduction of the new coronavirus business interruption loan scheme, which was an enhancement of the Enterprise Finance Guarantee Scheme, which provides a further £1 billion potentially into businesses and SMEs looking to gear up if they're looking at that funding. And there's also the extension of the Startup Loans Programme with another £130 million generated into the Startup Loans Programme. So government's doing what it can do to support that growth scenario in businesses who might see an upside in it, So I think, and let's watch the space for any more initiatives which government might produce to support those growing businesses.
I agree. I mean, I think, inevitably in any period of uncertainty and challenge, there are sadly always opportunities, and so there will be areas where there is great demand. Those businesses don't have it easy as a result, though. They have still got to manage the difficulties of workforce and looking after the workforce and all those and their supply chain. So it will still be a challenge and will still impact on how we work through. I think it will be interesting to see what flexibility comes into the system in total, and perhaps we'll realise that things can be more flexible than we perhaps have worked under before. And I mean, I noticed on the news this morning, so I'm sure it was there, was Louis Vuitton are converting their perfume manufacturing process now to manufacturing sanitising equipment, and I think that's there are all sorts of opportunities to pull together.
I think what's proven it over the years is that we are quite we show good initiative when we need to pull together, and as a community, I think a business community, we will pull together as well. And I think there'll be some new initiatives that we see coming out of this. And you're right, for the future, it might mean that we work in different ways, but in better ways.
Absolutely. I mean, I know we're going off topic, and Donna will be bringing us back. But certainly talking to some GPs over the weekend who are now working online appointments rather than face-to-face appointments. And that's a technology that has been there for a long time, but there's been a reluctance on both patient and doctor to change, whereas now it's been forced on us, and I suspect will remain post-crisis. So I think there'll be all sorts of new ways of working.
And I think that will be the same for businesses as well.
Absolutely.
In terms of technology, Skype.
Being
for
brought
business,
in, being used. And,
absolutely.
So
it's been there, but we've all resisted using it, whereas now we're going to be
there's a reason to actually look at how you can do things differently. And I think that in terms of maintaining those contacts with your businesses, in terms of those conversations about where businesses are up to, where their suppliers are up to, then obviously that is another way of having those conversations, which is sort of next best face-to-face, isn't it? You can still see somebody when you're talking to them, rather than it's just a phone call. And some people are more comfortable doing that when they know people, whereas if you're now trying to form new relationships, that's different. But actually that face-to-face comms can still take place. So I think it's encouraging businesses to do that as well. And you can have group conversations in those forums as well.
Well, the conversation I was having this morning before we came into this was talking about how if we have a huge portion of our staff working from home, how we create sort of a team meeting catch up every morning through some sort of video conferencing, so that everyone feels together, and how you can use technology to sort of have buddying systems, so you're working with someone whilst you're sat at home. I think, if it wasn't so real and so rapidly moving, it could be exciting. But I think that the concerns over not being in control of what we're doing overpowers everything.
But I think there are people will adapt fairly quickly in terms of that new way of working, because that's one of the traits, isn't it?
Yes,
that we all have. That once you get used to it, it's fine.
It's wonderful. Yes.
Yes.
So in terms of, obviously, that supply chain challenge, we've had a question come through around movement of freight. And if so, what sort of warming and timescales could be expected if freight movement was going to change? So does anybody have a comment or view about that?
I think, without being an expert in freight movement, I think we're still seeing freight moving, and we still expect that to move. It'd be a very difficult situation where we stopped moving freight of all designations around the country and around the world. And I think it's difficult to see anything changing in the short term. So I would suggest that things will still move around. So toilet rolls will still be moved around the country on a regular basis.
That's good to hear. I'm still not
Manufacturing
understanding
Salford, but there you go.
Yes. And I think, Caroline, you did make the point that even though Italy's been in lockdown, that actually freight has continued to move.
Yes.
So all the signs are at the moment that, there are no indications that that's going to stop.
And perversely, because this started in China and they've been through what they've been through, but production in China is it's not yet at 100%, but certainly the people I was talking to with factories in China are saying they're at sort of 90% now. So and that freight is moving in. So
And perversely, there is capacity on freight at present.
yes.
Because of less things being manufactured, being shipped, suddenly there is extra capacity there. So there is capacity on freight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So at the moment, all signs are that
it will continue.
Will continue to move.
Yeah.
And obviously, the .gov UK sort of daily updates that are coming out. If that situation changes, then we would expect to see some communication through that. To do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, a big concern at the moment in terms of contingency planning and for how long this situation may continue, watching your cash flow, then there is the issue around most people's fixed costs in the main relate to staff. So obviously that's almost the elephant in the room. Do you have that conversation or not? But clearly in terms of that contingency planning and that openness and honesty with staff around some of the challenges that you're facing, what are people's views around that?
Well, I think as you just said, Donna, the key thing has to be a clear and transparent communication with staff, because no one wants surprises, and in the same way as you don't want surprises with your supply chain, your staff will not want a surprise in terms of your pay policy. But it is a really difficult area, isn't it? And as a business owner, it's really hard because you're trying to look after the whole business, but it impacts everyone individually in that.
It is an interesting. I mean, it's a scary one because in past instances where we've had some sort of crisis coming along, it's reasonably sort of common for businesses not to act fast enough. And fortunately, we have got a little bit of time now to actually begin to actually look at what we can do. And a lot of businesses really should be reviewing staff terms and conditions, seeing the potential to lay people off, vary terms and conditions, talking to staff, have that communication. How do we continue business, in spite of everything? Certainly, sort of personally, sort of directors, you probably shouldn't be drawing salaries, to try and sort of to preserve what they've got and look at building that war chest.
I agree. I think it's a conversation we at the Business Growth Hub and in the Access to Finance team have on a regular basis, but we've started to have those conversations more and more with SMEs over the course of the last few weeks. And as Jeff said, you've got to make decisions. You've got to make those in conjunction with your co-directors, your management team, and your advisors. But the one thing you shouldn't do is delay making adjustments and changes where the business need dictates.
Yeah, so it's about being upfront, isn't it? It's that communication with staff, and actually quite often staff can come up with solutions as well.
Yeah.
In terms of how they can help solve some of these problems, but it's about having that dialogue.
Yeah.
And I think that's true, Donna. It's about flexibility, and workforces do tend to be flexible, particularly where jobs are on the line, and you might be surprised at what your staff can do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think workforces they work in the business. They are very aware of what's going on around them. They know there's lack of work coming in. They know there's a problem. So nobody should be surprised at this one. It's a big decision that needs to be made quickly.
Yeah, and there are things in terms of annual leave, aren't there, and people taking more of that during quiet times. So there are things that you can do to start to manage that risk and also the cost on the business. Are there any other things that people should think around contingency planning? So we've talked about staff, we've talked about talking to your bank and suppliers.
Probably look at any sort of non-essential overheads you've got.
Yeah.
Even some of the essential ones probably need to be reviewed as well. They need to be stopped. Start looking at your direct debits going out, review everything that's going there as to where it's going to.
Absolutely. Yeah. The other thing I think is worth looking at, and it links into all sorts of aspects, so I'll sort of jump around, but to look at your key contracts, whether they're with your suppliers or your customers, look at the clauses there, look at it in terms of how it links to your insurance cover, and if you're at risk of any penalties imposition, whether you have cover. it's tricky. I know that there's this term force majeure, isn't it, and whether it falls into that. I think that's a relevant conversation to be having with your insurance provider as to where that fits through.
I think it comes back to that communication piece again. It's interesting that in the last credit crisis we had, more and more businesses spoke to their customers and also spoke to the suppliers and generated more connectivity and community with those. And I think it's about speaking and being realistic to both your clients and your suppliers as well.
Yes. And I'm sure everyone listening to this will be in the same place, that at the moment their email inbox is inundated with emails. I try not to look at it as I'm talking, but and they will be from a mixture of staff with very valid concerns, but also your customers wanting to know what your policies and procedures are, and suppliers wanting to know. And I think trying to find some means of communicating in a way that is not distracting you from your core job of running your business, but is making that communication clear.
And I think that comes when we look at small businesses. Many business owners work on their own. It's about speaking to trusted advisors, speaking to friends and family,
Absolutely.
speaking to other business owners, and speaking to people at the Business Growth Hub and their financial advisors. Don't try and do it all on your own. There's a lot of support and help out there.
And to remember that this is a uncharted waters, that everyone is finding a challenge to deal with. So don't feel it's a reflection on your ability in running your business that you're struggling with it, because I can absolutely assure you, I've been talking to some very big multinational groups, and they are absolutely pulling their hair out how to work this. So it is not unusual to be a bit scared and a bit worried about it.
Yeah, and that's quite a normal feeling.
Absolutely.
And to recognise that.
I think so. 'Cause I think as much through all of this, and we've got a lot of very clear challenges and very very defined jobs to do. But I think the impact on our sort of psychological well-being through it will be as much of a challenge for everyone to manage as everything else.
Yeah, and it's also about people recognising, the self-isolation. I think, Jeff, you mentioned earlier around, have you got at least 3 people who can do a particular job? So that you've got that contingency in place to enable you to still function as a business. It's about having those plans in place, isn't it?
It's interesting. I've seen a number of businesses over the last few days who are now splitting the workforce.
Yes.
Workforce A, workforce B, making sure that they don't mix and match, so that if you have an impact on one side of the workforce, that the other side of the workforce is still ready and able and willing to work. So maybe those thoughts as well.
Yeah.
And understanding the workflow streams that are critical to the business, as in, which are the ones you can possibly sort of put on a back burner, which is the one that's absolutely critical that makes the profit. How do we focus all the attention on that part of the business? How do we sort of conserve resources onto that one that's going to make the money and keep us afloat? So
and it's about having those plans visible, isn't it? I know we as a business now have identified who are the key people who would step up if senior manager couldn't work. So what's that plan that you've got in place so that that the business decisions will get made and the business can function should senior people be affected. So it's about having those plans in place as well, so that operationally that things will keep going.
Yes.
And having those documented so that everybody's clear on that. So it comes back to the comms again.
And understanding the cost centers as well, so that you know that if you have a variation in the process, whatever it is, be it manufacturing, non-manufacturing, what the variation of the process is going to cost you, and is it still profitable to do that?
Yes.
The business case is still there.
So in terms of, we've had some questions coming in related, I think, Caroline, you mentioned earlier around, we've had the Brexit scenario planning taking place, which is now, we've got coronavirus on top of that. So businesses were already being cautious around investing. So is there any comments that the panel would like to make around, how businesses are going to manage that?
Well, I think if I'm in danger of saying, right, this is a really bad situation, and how on earth could I make it even worse, I would add into that mix the thought of risks that were actually sort of preoccupying business leaders pre-virus that won't have gone away because we are preoccupied with dealing with this. So I think cyber security, in my mind, is a real area that we shouldn't lose our focus on. In fact, it's possibly even of enhanced risk because people are reacting quickly. I've referred to our email overload. It'll be really easy to click on the wrong email today because you're dealing with hundreds of them.
Yes.
We've got people working remotely. Are we comfortable that they're accessing systems through a secure portal? It sounds awful, but much as in times of challenge, there are opportunities to develop in good ways. There are sadly opportunities for people to see weaknesses in the system and capitalise on that. So just something else to add to your worries and sleepless nights, I'm afraid.
But it is about being vigilant, isn't it? If something doesn't look right, then double check
Probably
it.
isn't. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But
Yeah.
but when I completely understand when you come back to your desk and you've got 600 emails, it's really easy to click
Yeah.
on
the
it,
wrong
isn't
one.
it? So
Yeah.
yes, and that's and if I mean, this won't really relate to manufacturing production lines in the same way, but if you've got members of your work staff working remotely from home, making sure that they are still kind of drilled into the same security measures that we would use otherwise, that they're using their own computer, that it's got all the proper protection on it.
Yeah, now there's obviously, we've had a bit of a focus on manufacturers, but obviously hospitality, tourism and leisure businesses have been hit quickly as a result of,
Quickly
sporting
and
events.
significantly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not happening, number of people cancelling travel. So what support is around to support that sector?
Well, obviously, government introduced business rate relief into that sectors for those paying with rateable values below £51,000, I think it was. So there's an element of government support available, but it's how fleet of foot you can be and what you can do to mitigate against the loss of that kind of business. Is there something else you can do? But maybe there's something, there's nothing you can do. I think we all feel for that sector and that industry because at the moment that seems to be one which is taking the brunt of the issue around people not moving around, people not gathering in large groups. I think it's going to continue to be an issue for quite a few months. So it's about, what contingencies have you got and what can you do about supporting your own business through that and what you need to do to, as we've talked about before, maybe reduce some of those key outgoings that you might need to do. It's a difficult one for that sector, I think.
It is, because I think very much they are operating on a hand-to-mouth basis anyway. If you think of art centres and the like, I know the Old Vic announced, didn't they, yesterday, that they were shutting their show early, but they were asking people if they would feel right to donate their ticket money to the company. And that may or may not be successful, and you don't know. But the impact on future bookings is going to be huge.
Well, the impact is
isn't
massive,
it?
I think, with Chile pulling out of all flights and all cruise-related activity for the next few months. It's going to have a massive impact.
Yeah, and I think, for sort of Greater Manchester-based businesses in that sector, then Marketing Manchester is obviously making sure that they're updating their website in terms of support and help that is available. And I know that, the Business Growth Hub team will have somebody from Marketing Manchester with them so that they can actually deal with any inquiries that they're getting. So it's, flag it and at least contact somebody who may be able to signpost you appropriately.
There may be a positivity on the horizon, a few months down the line when people, of course, decide not to go abroad or can't travel abroad. They may well be utilising more facilities based in the UK. So it's not for today, but it could be something. Staycation could be something which helps part of that sector to recover and grow further down the line.
Yes. I think the key is in keeping the economy somewhere near a positive position, isn't it? Because if there's hope within the economy, then people will will start to want to go out and eat,
Mm-hmm.
to go on holidays here, isn't there? It's just having that confidence in that economy.
And I think as well that people will begin to understand what the risk is as well
Yes.
better.
Yes.
They'll
we just
understand
don't
what
know.
it is, what the risk is, how they can mitigate it.
Yeah.
And that will begin to develop across people, where they'll begin to understand what they can and can't do, or what they feel comfortable in doing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think as we've seen how it's impacted in other parts of the world and how they're now starting to re-engage. They're going back to work. So we know that will happen, and obviously we're trying to manage it in a way where people can conduct their lives as far as possible and as sensibly as possible on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
But it's about being vigilant and being sensible, isn't it?
I think so, yes. And recognising that whilst we all have our own sort of line in the sand as to what risks we feel appropriate, but it's not actually just down to us, because it's working with everyone else and not putting them into a position they feel difficult with.
Yeah. So it's following the guidance that is available to all of us, isn't it? So in terms of questions that we're seeing come through, then we've obviously had one around maintaining B2B sales. So commentary on that from anybody?
I think it's keeping in contact with your client base, your wider client base, those you've sold to in the past, those you've connected to. Make sure you're out there letting them know that you're still available, you've still got product to deliver to them, and that they're still key part of your business and that you can deliver at the end of the day. Making sure that you've got product you can deliver into your client base is important. But, it still behoves directors to be the salespeople we know them to be, and to make sure that they get out there into the community.
We've all got telephones. They're your friend. Ring up your clients because they're at home waiting for your call.
Yes.
The many of the directors are going to be desperate to sort of find out what's happening, and those conversations. Talk to your clients, talk to your customers. Keep that communication open. Make friends on the phone. It's good.
Yes, absolutely.
There is also the potential of sort of if you haven't got if your clients aren't buying from you, what can you do with the stock you have?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you either sell the stock, make something else, look at variations as what's out there, that's what needs doing?
Yeah. What is actually wanted? What are people buying if they're not buying your product?
Yeah.
Yes.
You have intelligent people in your business, whatever the business is. What can they be turned to? There is new opportunities, as we said before.
It's quite interesting. We've heard from a number of SMEs over the last few weeks who were stockpiling because of Brexit-related issues. So there's a silver lining in some ways around Brexit, and there's some business owners have actually got a reasonable level of stock. So it could be that they've got the stock that you need, so it's worth engaging with the wider community.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
You might not be able to use the stock, but someone else can buy it off you and keep you going.
Yeah, so it's about how you actually make companies aware that you have that availability, isn't it? So how can you use, the web in terms of that search, or offering what you may have, because out of this there'll be new alliances that develop.
Absolutely, and it's a big world out there, isn't there? And we're concentrating on the northwest, and that's our area. But this crisis is a global crisis, but the market is equally global. So it might just be an entry into a new world.
Yeah, it's a different world, and you're going to need new products. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Be those manufactured or services.
Absolutely.
Well, yes. And, there we know that some of the professional service teams are going to be inundated in terms of the demands on their teams in supporting the client base that they've got. Because whilst there's a cycle to things normally, this is something that's a moment in time, which means, as you say, Karen, those emails are just flooding in.
Absolutely.
Because this isn't a case of your normal business cycle. This is something that's impacting now.
Yes.
In terms of those professional teams, what best can their clients do for them to help them manage that influx of work?
Sorry. So as a professional service provider, what can our clients do for us?
Yes.
keep in contact, really. You know, much as I'm saying about overload and that, what we want to do is to know what the issues are early, and we can talk. There are all sorts of things that can be done to help. Some are quicker, some take longer, but we just need to be in contact, really. I think, you know, it's a position that's rapidly changing. Certainly, you know, I talked about as us in business, we're dealing a lot with clients who are wanting to negotiate time to pay arrangements. So that impacts on our tax team mostly, but they are all focused working with our corporate team in terms of bringing that together, and we're just widening up the teams to react to the work that's needed. Strangely, people aren't so keen on having the auditors coming out at the moment. I can't ever think why as an auditor, but we're not seemingly as popular as we thought we were. So we're looking at how we can redeploy our audit staff, or think of ways that we can do sort of 90% of that audit remotely through electronic work now. And it's just a brave new world.
Yeah, so we're going to find new ways of dealing with those situations. So where people have got a year-end audit coming up, obviously end of March is
a big time.
Big one. Sort of from a lot of businesses. So in terms of that, if there are concerns about whether audits are going to be completed on time, you know, being compliant with statutory accounts, making sure all those things are filed in an appropriate time.
Absolutely. I mean, Companies House have issued, the government have issued a relaxation on filing of your accounts, which is to be welcomed and is appreciated. I do feel it might not be as much help as you think, because we were talking before about, you know, funding and speaking with your finance producers, and they're quite likely to ask for a set of your accounts. So it might be that whilst you've got something there, it's taken away there. But it is in part of that mix. I mean, the challenges for the sort of corporate reporting process, which I don't think is the subject of today's discussion, because we could speak for another hour on that quite happily. But they are real, and they need to be met, and of course they will ricochet down. So even though the stock exchange requirements don't really apply to your average SME in Greater Manchester, actually the repercussions of all the issues will ricochet down.
And it's certainly worth speaking to your financial advisors, because there could be things like research and development tax credits, which they'd never thought of before, which might have a much needed benefit to either reducing tax bills or to cash flow going forward. So it's always worth speaking to your accountant.
Absolutely. If you go onto the R&D banner, I think generally what happens is that our businesses in the area are phenomenally excellent at what they do, and they have some phenomenally clever processes. But because it's routine to them, they don't see it as being anything special. They see it as normal, whereas that is right on where the money is for those R&D credits.
So it's actually, we know businesses underclaim, don't we, on that?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's worth exploring, isn't it? All options of things you may have missed.
Absolutely. Give some a call.
So I think we're drawing to a close in terms of the time that we have available to us. So I think the key message from this is about communication with your banks, your advisors, with your business growth hub or other support organisations, to make sure that communication is as frequent as you need to do it. So all that remains to me is to say thank you to the panel. Hope that those listening today found the discussion informative and that you'll start to feel better prepared. We'll have more webinars coming shortly on a range of topics, including legal implications and managing remote working